A vicious eagle, muscles coiled, plunges with relentless force upon a venomous snake, while above them the stylized eye of Horus watches, guardian, judge, and sentinel. This is the emblem of the Egyptian general intelligence, Egypt's eyes that never sleep. For generations, officers have drawn strength and resolve from that image. Since its founding in 1954, Egypt's intelligence apparatus has been a decisive actor in the shadowed world of espionage, covert operations, and strategic deception. Its influence has shaped battles, deterred threats, and, at critical moments, altered the course of modern Middle Eastern history. To understand the service's legacy is to study a string of operations that blend patient tradecraft with audacious execution. One of the clearest demonstrations of that craft occurred in the lead-up to the October 1973 war. After the 1967 defeat, Egypt faced the monumental task of reconstituting its armed forces and preparing to challenge a well-entrenched foe. Moving hundreds of thousands of troops and heavy materiel into position along the Suez Canal without alerting Israeli surveillance and American satellites that overflew the region required more than raw manpower. It required information superiority and the ability to control what the enemy perceived. Egyptian intelligence pursued multiple avenues. When recruiting an insider from an American satellite agency proved impractical, the service exploited an unexpected domestic vulnerability inside Israel itself, the civilian employee at the Israeli Meteorological Center who received American satellite imagery within 18 hours of identifying that weak link. Egypt began receiving routine satellite pictures for analysis at military laboratories. From those images, analysts traced orbital paths and forecasted reconnaissance coverage. With this knowledge, Egyptian commanders choreographed a massive, clandestine redeployment across the canal, preserving surprise. Deception complemented secrecy, as Egyptian formations masked. Intelligence planners confronted the problem of storing and concealing heavy crossing equipment. Tanks, artillery, and pontoon bridges, exposed to aerial reconnaissance. These assets would betray the plan. The solution was a masterpiece of strategic misdirection. Scrap metal, decommissioned tanks, and wooden mock-ups were laid along the canal under torn camouflage nets. These decoys were deliberately conspicuous, visible enough to invite disdain from Israeli reconnaissance, to signal nothing of consequence here. Meanwhile, the real tools for the crossing were hidden in plain sight, disguised as rusted debris. On October 6, 1973, when Egyptian forces breached the Barlev Line and crossed the Suez, the effectiveness of that deception became unmistakable. What the enemy had dismissed as theater proved to be the cover for a decisive operation. Intelligence work extended beyond battlefield preparation to the softer, logistical realms of war. Hospitals that would receive casualties had to be emptied and readied without provoking public alarm. To that end, Egyptian services orchestrated plausible cover stories, including the staged appearance of a tetanus outbreak, to justify the sanitization and temporary closure of medical facilities. Thus, the infrastructure of war was prepared under the cloak of routine health procedures. Covert action abroad was equally bold. In 1969-1970, operations aimed at countering perceived Israeli economic encroachment culminated in plans to neutralize a drilling rig associated with foreign and Israeli interests. Codenamed internally as Operation Digger or Al-Hai, the mission required months of patient tracking, following a vessel's long itinerary from North America across the Atlantic and along West African ports, mapping security details and deploying human frog teams to conduct underwater sabotage. Field commanders such as Mohammed Nassim undertook reconnaissance missions to ports in Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire, adapting plans to local conditions and the presence of foreign military elements. The operation's first phases met formidable challenges. Transport delays, unexpected security configurations, and the complexity of staging an amphibious attack under surveillance, but they illustrated the depth and reach of Egypt's clandestine apparatus, capable of projecting power well beyond its borders. Long-term human intelligence also proved invaluable. Informants embedded close to Israel's leadership provided years, even decades, of warning and insight. Such sources help Cairo anticipate shifts in Israeli posture prior to major conflicts and sustained Egypt as strategic advantage in several confrontations, fast-forwarding to recent decades. The institution's remit broadened from conventional warcraft to crisis management, mediation, and protection of national interests in an increasingly interconnected region. During periods of heightened tension, including conflicts involving Ethiopia, Somalia, and broader Horn of Africa dynamics, Egyptian units and intelligence operatives have been dispatched or activated to shape outcomes and limit spillover into Egyptian territory. Today, the intelligence service again operates at the center of a regional flashpoint, the Gaza crisis, and the contentious proposals over population movements that surfaced in recent diplomatic exchanges. When proposals to relocate or otherwise displace Palestinian populations were publicly floated by international actors, Egypt articulated clear red lines. Cairo's intelligence apparatus moved to mediate between Palestinian factions and to coordinate border management, humanitarian access, and medical relief through established channels. Along the Rafah crossing, intelligence coordination aimed to facilitate aid flows, secure returns, and prevent escalation that might endanger Egyptian sovereignty, all while keeping a vigilant watch on developments in northern Sinai and along the border. These contemporary operations reflect a continuity of purpose to safeguard Egypt's national security. By combining clandestine information collection, discreet diplomacy, and, when required, decisive deterrence, the state's posture, including force deployments and diplomatic pressure, has been designed to communicate resolve to domestic and foreign audiences alike. Regional partners, from Jordan to other Arab capitals, have echoed positions that reject forced displacement as a policy option, creating a broader diplomatic front that underpins tactical intelligence measures. The story of Egyptian intelligence is thus not merely a catalogue of operations, it is the history of an institution that learned, through setbacks and successes, how to shape perception as skillfully as it shapes events. From recruiting sources inside adversary institutions to staging elaborate deceptions, from clandestine sabotage missions to cross-border mediation, the service's practices have evolved to meet the complexities of modern conflict. As with any living institution, its role continues to be written. In an era of shifting alliances, satellite surveillance, and instantaneous information flows, the intelligence service's ability to adapt, to conceal, to reveal selectively, and to act with calibrated force will determine its influence in the days ahead. The Eye of Horus and its emblem is more than a motif. It is a metaphor for vigilance, restraint, and the persistent conviction that some national lines must not be crossed. In the decades since 1954, those convictions have guided Cairo's clandestine guardians through war and negotiation alike, and they remain central to the country's strategic posture today.